And welcome to Light Years. Andy Lou, it's my favorite time of the year. You know that? This is my favorite time of the year. And it's not just because tomorrow I will be going to Las Vegas Summer League, which is, if you ever have a chance to go, a lot of fun if you're an NBA dork and you just really like hoops and everything. But I started thinking about why I enjoy this time of year so much. And it's the optimism of what next year could be. Right now, I'm already talking about how Podziemski could be like a super roided out, better version of Steve Nash in my mind. I'm going crazy. And it's mostly because last season sucked. And right now, everyone's kind of just positive vibes. No, reality hasn't hit.
Do you remember last year at this time?
It's not the real NBA.
Not yet. Not yet. Not till Steph is gone. You remember what we were saying around this time last year, though. We were the same level of optimism. We were locked in. James Wiseman's gonna grow up. He's gonna play 15. Kuminga and Moody year 2.
Well, I wasn't on the Wiseman train, but I was on the other ones. That's true. Yeah.
Oh man, you're right. You're right. And it feels like the Warriors have some guys that are playing well. We'll get into the games and stuff. But I've been to Summer League 5 times. Six times. It's fun because you get to see some of these guys that they all play hard, man. They all play hard. It's not great basketball, but they all play hard. Everyone plays hard. A lot of guys out there are fighting for their careers. The Warriors have guys that are going to be fighting for their careers. It's cool. Hopefully Trayce Jackson-Davis plays because I'm looking forward to that. So
I know,
have
right?
a good time.
Well, we have a new no big policy in Golden State. Absolutely no one over 6'5" is allowed on the team. So, of course, the one guy they draft who's, let's be honest, he's probably 6'8".
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even think he's
already ruled out. It's Summer League. No one's playing through kind of a tweaked hammy in Summer League. It would be dumb too. But yeah, I want to see him play, obviously.
Yep.
All right, let's talk California Classic for a couple of minutes. I think I'll let you kick it off because I was on the Podziemski bandwagon like a sicko watching Santa Clara games. I know you weren't, so this is probably your first taste of his game. What'd you come away thinking over these?
Looks very eerily similar to Nico Mannion. So I was a little scared. I'm talking about the hair. Like the hair.
Yeah.
I'm just watching him run out there and I'm like, oh no, this is not great. This is not great. And then I watched him actually play basketball and I'm like, all right, like he can definitely play. He's got a lot of confidence. That was the first thing. He's got a lot of confidence. He doesn't seem like someone that doesn't think he's going to be able to make the NBA. Last year we watched Justinian Jessup, who was hyped up, obviously later round guy. But he looked like he wasn't ready to play. He looked scared out there. It's not something you see from Podziemski, who looks like he shot a one-legged 3 going the other way at the end of the game when he hasn't really been able to shoot across 2 games, which isn't the concern with him. But high-level thoughts for him is shots there. He's crafty. He draws fouls, which is funny. He's already got better foul drawer than Klay Thompson, than Steph Curry. He's rolling his hands under guys on a drive. Reminds me of James Harden. I thought that was pretty funny. It's kind of a shifty finisher. I think he's a great rebounder for some reason. So you watch him, even though the Warriors didn't draft any centers or have any centers on the team. Is this kid just going to average 6 rebounds?
Scrappy 6'3.5" guys. That's
so
the
weird.
Marking efficiency, right? The funny thing is, I saw people saying, "Oh, he doesn't look 6'5," and I'm like, anyone lists at 6'5", they're 6'3.5". That's the general rule.
He really is. He definitely
and
is.
he is. I was looking it up. He measured almost identical to Dante and Jordan Poole in terms of height and wingspan and stuff. So it's like, good size for a 1, little undersized for a 2. Gonna lose my mind when Steve plays him at the 4, like that sort of stuff.
Listen, definitely a guard. Definitely a guard. No chance at the wings.
But the thing that stood out to me with him and always stands out to me is feel. I feel like a lot of rebounding is just nose for the ball. Like Steph's a great rebounder. He's not particularly big or athletic either. Even Westbrook, who is a freak athlete, he's 6'3". Dante could really rebound the ball. He's not particularly huge. A lot of rebounding, particularly from the guard position, is like anticipation, reading it, and then do you just want it? And watching him play, like not a player who's afraid to get his nose dirty and just get in there. And then he just kind of has a feel for where the ball goes. Like you either have it or you don't on some level. And then if you have it, are you going to use it? So I thought that was cool. I also thought his passing feel was even better than I expected. And again, this is summer league competition. Let's see if he can get off some of those pocket passes or moves off the dribble against like engaged NBA defenders, right? Like it's a different level, but the playmaking is the intriguing part. Cause like you said, like the shot, not particularly concerned. He was maybe the best shooter in college basketball statistically. So you got to think at some level it'll come around.
It's going to go.
But it's like it's that other stuff that's going to determine whether he's just like a shooting specialist off the bench, kind of a dime a dozen guy, or actually a dude who can develop into a player who's in your 8-man rotation, not year one, but like year 2, year 3. That sort of thing.
So we're perfectly aligned there. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so we didn't plan this, but that's my biggest fear. Just watching these couple games is that I'm actually not so concerned about him defensively. I feel like he's going to be able to hold his own. He's too smart. The thing about defense is if you're smart enough, you're going to be able to play defense at the NBA level unless you're 5'11", right? Then you're screwed. But he's big enough to figure something out at the 1 and the 2. But he tried a few step back, sidestep, some dribbles, and they didn't go anywhere. And so I'm watching. I'm just like, is he going to just be like you're saying, a fringe rotation guy? It's just like your standard white dude shooter, right? Who's going to make his money, kind of like a Luke Kennard, or is he actually going to be hey, I can handle the ball and I can get guys the rock, kind of like your Desmond Bane. And I know Dean on Draft came on and he kind of mentioned him as like somewhat of a comp. Bane's not super quick, but he can get to his spots. He can pass a little bit. He can get a shot up. Whereas Kennard cannot. He's just hey, I'm going to come and run around a screen and just shoot a 3. So we can't tell. I mean, I can't tell. It's just been 2 games, so we'll see against, like you said, better comp. But that would be my fear watching it, because I mean he did a couple moves where I was just like, these have no chance. These have absolutely no chance. So we'll see. But you're right. I mean, the kid is smart as hell. He is smart as hell. He knows how to play basketball, and that's a huge difference between watching him and watching Wiseman and Kuminga is it's like a different fucking world of hoops. You can just tell this kid actually knows how to play versus those.
Yeah. It's like a complete opposite draft strategy. He's a borderline NBA athlete, honestly. But there's been a lot of borderline NBA athletes who turned into really good players. There's also a lot of guys who, like you said, it just ends up being one level too high for them, and they have to turn into like Kennard's a good player, but like coming out of Duke, you thought he could do a little more, and then he gets the NBA, and it's like, you're really only going to make your money, coming off screens and spotting up, because anytime you put it on the ground, like it's too fast for you. They're too athletic, that sort of thing. So we'll see, but like it does feel like worst case with him, he should be at least a passable rotation player in a year or 2. And I still think there's more upside there, because he's got a unique skill set. I'll put it that way. The combo of feel and aggression and some of the passing. I think he could end up being a player. I like the pick because they're betting on different things than they were betting on last time.
Way different.
Enough with betting on like he's, he won the genetic lottery, but like we're not sure he actually understands anything other than, open run dunking, basically.
If the Warriors had this philosophy going into the draft 2 years ago, they take Franz Wagner. Like, to me, that's very clear. Very, very clear that they draft Franz Wagner, who's then, behind in the rotation, doesn't play for some reason all year, just like Moses Moody. But I know I'm going to enjoy watching Podziemski this year. Whether it be, I think he's going to play mostly in Santa Cruz. I doubt that he's going to play at all.
Well,
not his fault, because that's how it works.
The other thing is, like, he could maybe play if they didn't have like 18 veteran guards ahead of him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
3, 4, 5. Yeah.
I mean, they literally have 2 Hall of Fame point guards. Then they go get,
Corey Joseph, then Corey Clay.
Obviously. GP2 is going to get minutes in there. Who are we not even mentioning?
I mean, you can throw Moses Moody, who's a 2-3 guy, in there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of in that role, right? So yeah, I mean, he's gonna have if Podziemski's playing 20 minutes a game, might be screwed. Lester Quinones, who we haven't even talked about, probably should be.
What'd you think of him? What'd you think of him? I thought he looked. I remember when I saw him last summer league,
so bad,
and the fact that he was Wiseman's college roommate was like, oh great, they're bringing him in here just to be the vibes guy. But by the end of last season, I was like, oh, this guy got a lot better really quick, and he looks pretty good.
I was shocked. He was bad last season, and people are texting me like, "Hey, like you didn't know he was good. You didn't see him in G League." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm looking at numbers in G League. I don't got time to watch G League games." But they're telling me that from the way that he progressed from last season to this season was astronomical. He's always been a great shooter, but it sounds like he's always been a great shooter. But the off the dribble stuff is interesting to watch.
That's surprising me because I thought when they brought him in, they were trying to make him be like a Damian Lee type, which honestly, like if you can turn a two-way into that, I take that every day of the week. You know, you can always throw those guys out there, like shoot, competes, flawed, but like they're on a two-way. What do you expect, right? Might have a little more off the bounce than I thought.
Maybe I see comparisons to Jordan Poole, which I think is funny. He's definitely got way less burst. Jordan Poole is way quicker. He's way faster with the ball. Quinones is a little more in control, right? So, but that's more so. I think he's just way less athletic, but he moves without the ball really nice. Same kind of questions that I have with Podziemski is like, does the off the ball dribble stuff work at all at the big league level, or is he just doing this against summer league guys because he's just so much better than these guys? So I think we'll find out. I guess the question is, do you think he'll remain on the two-way? You think another team out there kind of maybe throws him something? Because I know he's not officially. I think anybody can still pick him up, right? So
here's a two-way, but the way the two-way works is if someone offers a full contract, he can take it. So you can't keep him on a two-way if like the Hornets come and are like, we're going to give you a full contract. So in theory, another team could do that, forcing the Warriors to make a decision on whether they want to give him a full contract or let him go. It just hasn't happened yet. So we'll see. I think good chance he stays on a two-way. That stuff doesn't happen very often. And my theory on Lester is he'll start the year on a two-way and they'll give him a full contract before the end of the year.
Yeah.
They clearly like him. They invested a lot of time into developing him last year. Shout out Seth Cooper, who has been upgraded from the Santa Cruz staff to the Warriors staff. No surprise for development of guys like Lester Quinones. He also gets credit for like helping Jordan Poole figure it out when he went down to the G League and a few other things. I think I don't think he's gonna get stolen. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. There's always an off chance. There's always an off chance Charlotte watched him. He's like, he's better than half our players already. Why don't we just throw him a contract? Like, that's the type of team where I'm like, what do they have on their roster right now? They might
and then the Warriors have a glute of guards, so now half your roster is guards, and you're like, what are we doing here? But we don't want to lose them, kind of stuff. So sure. I mean, that'd be interesting. But I did watch him, and I'm like, this guy probably deserves to play more minutes than Podziemski right now, and part of that is probably he's just played a year, and he knows the system and he knows his role, and he's also a great shooter like Podziemski, right? So I don't. That's a tough one.
He's almost he's 2.5 years older, almost 3 years older than Podziemski. Going to be 23 when the season starts. I mean, he's like right at that sweet spot age wise where he should be able to break into a rotation, definitely like a worse team rotation. So we'll see. I don't know. The other interesting thing that's going on right now is we are at the July 6th, free agency. Players can officially sign contracts. And the Warriors have not added a big man, but I think more interesting, no one's really signed anyone the last 2 to 3 days. And I think everything that's going on with the Dame situation, the Harden situation, is essentially slowed down all of free agency. Is that how you read it?
I mean, have to be. Yeah, it has to be. I mean, that James Harden is out there still. I don't know.
Karl Anthony Towns has been rumored to be shopped. So yeah,
I don't know. Siakam now.
Sure. Yeah,
so just all names everywhere. So I'm with you. It feels like some of these guys like Dario Saric, who the Warriors obviously won, is kind of sitting there and saying, I mean, if it's gonna be Dame, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo, and then just nobody in Miami, shit, I could play 28 minutes, right?
I'll go be that nobody.
Exactly. Versus going to the Warriors and maybe playing 18 a game, right? If I was Sarge, I choose Miami. Plus, I get to live in Miami. I get to party in Miami, right? If I was Sarge, I'd do that. So, I think that's not good for the Warriors, but I don't think it means that it's not. It's that these players are going somewhere else. I think they just got to see what happens with these trades. I mean, it feels like, would it surprise you if this stuff just leaks for another month? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it just keeps going and going.
Hopefully not a month, but I mean, yeah, I'm looking. Here's some other guys. I'm not saying the Warriors should get these guys, but like Danny Green's out there. A team will view him as like a vet that could potentially help. Not a player the Warriors need because of position. PJ Washington hasn't signed. He may not get the restricted free agency offer he wants.
It's an interesting one.
I don't think the Warriors can get him, but for money reasons. But he's sitting out there. TJ Warren, not really a Warriors player, but definitely an NBA player. Kelly Oubre. These are all guys who are unsigned, and it definitely feels like there's a lot of. I haven't even looked at the guard list yet. Will Barton, Kendrick Nunn, George Hill, Terrence Davis, Wes Matthews, Austin Rivers. These are all guys who will be on NBA rosters. It just feels like we've hit that. It feels like everyone's waiting to see what happens with Dame, honestly. The confluence of all those events have slowed everything down, which is very annoying for the Warriors, or for, quite frankly, for me, because I'd just like to see the Warriors sign someone to have a little peace of mind,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Do you think the Warriors are in on any of those trades? We mentioned 4 players who are potentially on the move. Damian Lillard, everyone's familiar with the story. Harden, I love how he demands out, and everyone's like, "Nah, it's cool. You can keep him." The Harden one's the funniest to me because I don't think he realizes everyone's like. It's not 5 years ago. People aren't dying to have you on their roster anymore, buddy.
It did kind of shock me. It surprised me a little bit because I do view Harden as still a very good basketball player, but I think for what he's asking for, and the way he's going about this, teams are kind of saying, "I don't." Yeah, and you can't extend him.
You gonna give him Steph LeBron money in his mid to late 30s though, because at least he could trust those guys to always be in shape and
to work hard,
do whatever they can to get their body right.
Well, you can't even pay him if you wanted to. So who's to say that James Harden doesn't just leave the year after? So I want to talk about the Dame. I want to talk about the Dame stuff for a second.
Let's talk about the Dame stuff. I wanted to ask you: do you think the Warriors are still actively in on a guy like Siakam or Towns?
That's so okay. So
because I think because we can agree that they're not in on Harden.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Although I'm sure they've thought about it. I'm sure they've thought about it, but I feel like Steph and Draymond probably said, let's keep this one moving. It felt like Dame, Ramona Shelburne threw out there like, hey, the Warriors could have still waited and maybe got Damian Lillard. To which I respond, does Portland want Jordan Poole's contract at all? Do they want Simons and Poole's, kind of the same player, to go with Scoot? That's weird. I always thought that was weird. Does Dame even want to play in Steph's shadow? It's kind of his hometown, or used to be his hometown. Very weird scenario. Does Dame want to take a backseat to Steph? Because then he'd be the number 2 guard.
And then we didn't answer the biggest one. Do the Warriors want to pay 2 point guards $60 million a year? God. That's just a lot of money for 2 guys who play the same position.
And then you throw in Clay's contract. So now you're talking about $100 million between 3 guys.
At least he plays a different position.
Yeah. Well, no, 3 of those guys can't defend. So it's hard, right? I think that one's out of the question. No, you take the Siakam cat question. You have more of an opinion around that than I do. Do you think that they're realistically looking at these now? Because maybe they could have then, but do they even have the ammunition, Sam, to talk about a trade for Karl-Anthony Towns and Pascal Siakam? Because I do feel like those guys are going to be gone in the next month.
Well, I do think in acquiring Chris Paul, they now have 2 guys, and forget what you think of them as basketball players, but you have 2 biggest expiring contracts: Chris Paul and Klay Thompson. So if Minnesota is going to dump Cat, they want to get young players because they're committed. You saw they gave Ant Edwards the huge extension. They paid Gobert. They're going to have to extend McDaniels. They just need to take back less money, you know? So like getting an expiring contract allows you to get out of that. And that's a big issue with someone like Towns. He's also owed a ridiculous amount of money. So my question there is like, I just don't know if the Warriors are willing to take on the type of money someone like Karl Anthony Towns is owed right now, because they'll keep them right up at the second apron. You know, like you do that and you almost have to be okay with Klay walking if you can't sign him at the number you want going into next year. And that's a tough pill.
I've never thought of that as mattering, like a long-term but it does now, I think, more than ever, right? When you talk about what the new CBA is and some of the stipulations that come with it. I'm kind of with you. Even if it's Siakam and then you have to pay him, is that worth it? I feel like Siakam's probably a better bet. Like he's probably a guy that I think the Warriors are more in on than someone like Cat. Can we agree on that? You think they'd rather have someone like him than the question becomes like, what can you even? It's just so hard when you say, because can they reroute that Chris Paul contract? Because here's the thing, as of
they can
right now, because it's not official. It's not official. That's Chris Paul trade.
They can reroute it. They might have to wait a few days to that sort of stuff. That's not a huge impediment to my knowledge on the whole thing.
Got it.
The bigger question is, like you said, that the reason they're having a hard time trading someone like Cat, and this has been written, and we're seeing this play out. Like the no trade clause was hilarious for Brad Beal, but more than anything, people are like, dude, the new CBA like makes it so you can't go over a certain number, and paying that much money to Brad Beal makes it really hard to build a team, you know, like that sort of thing, right? We even saw with Jordan Poole. At least part of the reason it was hard for them to move off of him was like, that's a lot of money you gave him. That like, I don't know that other teams are dying to give Jordan Poole that kind of money, you know? So I'm not certain on this. It's just very difficult to carry that many big contracts is kind of the point I want to get at.
Especially when they're not people that you think can be even in your future. I was just going to say Jordan Poole when you were talking about it, because it surprised me that they treated it like a salary dump when, as much as we can say about Jordan Poole, he is still a young 20s lead scoring guard that can score 20 plus points in the NBA.
Sure.
That shit's it doesn't grow on trees. Does not grow on trees. And they essentially just dumped him for half a year of a 38-year-old point guard
for cap flexibility. Like he's like this, like Steve's. It's pretty clear Kerr thinks like Chris Paul can definitely help stabilize a second unit, but like the reason the front office wants him is because they now have the ability to like be flexible with their trades for the next 12 months with Chris Paul.
Signing trade, all this other stuff, but in a vacuum, it is hard to watch. I mean, you throw a first pick round swap in there, some other stuff. So I just, and then you throw on the fact that they've really talked about Chris Paul like he's going to be a fixture on the team next season. There is no, they haven't been kind of quiet about Chris Paul. Chris Paul himself hasn't been. He's admitted that he's on the team next season. So I just have a hard time, even though technically they could reroute that contract, that happens. If it does happen, it feels like it's going to be a trade deadline move, which again, I'd be shocked too, because the Warriors never really do anything at the trade deadline when they're trying to win. Or next season, like they guarantee the contract and they use it to get another contract, right? Like I feel like that's stuff. Most likely.
I think I agree with you. Next summer is the most likely scenario. Yeah, I mean, it does seem to me like they're unlikely to move Chris Paul right now. There's a bet they're betting on Kuminga taking a step, him making him better. And I do think if the Kuminga thing doesn't work out, they're going to pivot off of it mid-season the way they did Wiseman. Just because Kuminga is 2 years away from an extension. If you're not going to extend him, if he's not like a piece, like I'm not saying he'll be this good, but let's say you view him as a Wiggins type of piece for you long term. If you're not going to extend him, you have to move him. Otherwise, he just walks for free in 2 years, and then you just wasted a lottery pick, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they did with Wiseman. They're like, it's not working here. He's owed money next year, and then he could walk. Let's just get GP2 back because at least that's something,
Yeah, that one I'd be shocked. That one, look, the Wiseman stuff was a failure. I mean, that was a failure so fast that you watched them play that first season and you saw so many flaws. Whereas with Kuminga, the last couple of seasons, these two, I think it would be a real shocker to me if he's on the team that they flip him, because that would mean he's regressed. I don't find it likely that he's regressing backwards unless he's just saying, I don't want to play in this system, which, might happen. But if he's out there and he plays, he's good enough. He's good enough. Yeah. Now, how good is he? No idea. No idea. But he's good enough.
I do agree with you. It's going to be a question of, does he buy in this year? Or is it going to be more of the, whining about his role, whining about minutes, plays well for 3 weeks straight, and then there's a regression and Steve puts him back in the doghouse and like that sort of stuff. So I think if it follows that path, I think there's a chance they might move in a different direction, but I don't know. Yeah, I think they want to see first.
It's on Steve too, but we talked about it. So.
Sure. All right. Well, let's talk before we get out of here. Las Vegas, the big summer league. You see Wembanyama's debut sold out, dude.
I mean, I'd be staying overnight in 100-degree heat.
$20 general admission tickets are currently being resold for $200 on StubHub. So part of me, I'm like, man, how early do I have to get there tomorrow?
Are you tickets or are you credential?
It doesn't matter.
I mean, maybe you won't even be able to get in as media. Actually, now that I think about it.
But what I was gonna say is, it's more of a like, how early do I need to get there to have a comfortable view? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you can always get there, but like you'll be stuffed away. It's too crowded, right?
Well, because the thing about Thomas and Mack Center in Vegas, depending on what arena it is, I assume it's going to be the bigger one.
Yes, yeah.
Is that? But you can sit wherever you want. Now, I don't know. It's been a few years since I've gone.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, how early do I have to get to? Like, are people going to show up at noon? Just be like, I'm going to sit here for 6 hours.
I would.
Wemby plays.
I would, because how often are you going to be able to watch Wemby in your city, depending on where you're at? Now maybe if you're living in Oklahoma City, it's a cheap ticket to sit front row. But for us people here, it costs us a couple $1,000s to watch San Antonio play at Chase, right?
Yeah, and if you're going to Summer League, you want to see him. You didn't go all the way to Vegas to not see Wembanyama play in his debut. So
and that close to watch him play. Also, good for Wembanyama that he's playing in the Summer League. I think a lot of times with the NBA now, we see these guys just not play and not show up. Very cool that he's playing. I will be watching because I've never watched Wembanyama play. I watched him play like 10 minutes of that game against Scoot Anderson. That was about it. He looked pretty good.
We got a good slate. You got Wemby's debut at 6, and then Warriors-Lakers grudge match at 8 in the same gym.
It's gonna be great.
I'm gonna be posted up there. And then you guys can find me at the tables afterwards.
Get a beer. You know what I mean? That's a great night of basketball. Summer League is. I mean, the Summer League is great because you can just watch 10 hours of bad basketball, but it only takes one Wembanyama sighting to make up for it. And man,
my favorite's the small gym, which obviously he won't be playing in. But like Summer League 2 years ago, the Warriors played 3 of their 4 games in the big gym, but 1 was in the small gym. And I happened to catch the one that was in the small gym. Got to watch Kuminga throw an absolute poster dunk in essentially a high school gym 3 rows behind. It's just hard to explain how fun that is to watch in person, because even if you're lucky enough to get courtside or somewhere close in an NBA game, it's not the same. You're still not as close,
No, and that's really what it is. I mean, that's really what's great is you can sit anywhere you want, and you're never going to get as close to these players. You really truly understand. Like, dude, these Podziemski might look 6'2" on my TV, But then you watch him up close, he might look slow on TV. Then you watch him play in real life, in real time, and you're like, yeah, that's the best dude in 99.9% of basketball gyms in the world.
Yep.
So I'm excited. Actually, I'm very excited to see what Podziemski's going to look like here in these games, because he does feel like the guy on this team. I think Lester Quinones is going to be an NBA player. Podziemski has an upside to be more than that, more than just a rotation guy. So I'm excited to see what.
First Dunleavy pick too. Like, he 19th pick. You're not expecting. You're hoping to get a rotation player at 19, but he's got a little upside there. So obviously curious to see how that plays out. Outside Podziemski, what else are you looking for in these Vegas games?
If he plays, I've been told by many people, including yourself, Trayce Jackson-Davis is an Andy Liu type of player. I have been told this. 4-year college player, healthy, undersized, can pass the ball, cannot really shoot. I am so excited to watch him play. I'm already imagining a dribble handoff 2-man game between Trayce Jackson. I'm just going TJD. It's too long. And Podziemski, because it's just two guys that feels like they know how to play basketball. It's kind of like it's like that Lithuania team. I've got like kind of, or that Argentina team back in the day. I've got huge flashbacks of just a team that knows how to play together. Not super athletic, but they're running dribble handoffs, they're running screens, pick and pops, back cuts, all this fun stuff. I would love to see him play, because he feels like a guy that fits perfect in the Warriors system. But I want to see how good he is defensively. Can he actually play it at the big level, or is he kind of someone like, Obi Toppin just got traded, and he's a different player, but he's kind of like an undersized 5'4"-ish, but he can shoot the rock like hell, super athletic, but he just can't play any defense. So he doesn't get to play. They had to flip him because Tibbs hates guys that don't play defense. If TJD's going to be an NBA player, he has to play defense. So I'd be curious to see if he can.
Yeah, he definitely topped my list. No word on if he's playing Friday, but I'm just going to assume he's not, because if he had a hamstring, keep him out of Monday and Wednesday. I think your best case is probably not Friday, but maybe gets in there Sunday, give him a full week or something. That's just me guessing how the Warriors go and how hamstrings go. Like, typically guys aren't, immediately back after a hamstring in summer league. The other thing I want to see from the Warriors is I'm kind of intrigued with Jacob Rubin, who they have coaching their summer league team. It seems like he's moving up the bench. I liked some of the ATOs he was calling for Podziemski against the Hornets, the California Classic. Let's see if they've got a little hidden gem coach. I mean, they lost Jamma to Toronto. They haven't replaced him on the coaching staff. They could replace him, or they could promote internally. Just curious to see, because Kenny Atkinson's obviously always going to be the number 2 to Steve Kerr, experienced, been head coach, like all that sort of stuff. But like, a big thing that's been useful for the Warriors in their better years is having a deep coaching staff where they a lot of different voices, really helps them come to the best decisions. And everyone spent all last year, it's like, oh, they miss Mike Brown. And, they probably did miss Mike Brown a little bit. I kind of think their issues were bigger than just missing Mike Brown. But, I'm kind of curious to see how that stuff goes, because they're making changes on the coaching staff, and they could be good changes. They could be bad changes. I don't know.
It feels like Kenny Atkinson's staying as number 2 on the bench instead of going to another head coaching gig for a reason too. I think he knows he's next in line. If
you think so?
I think he's banking on it. I mean, I don't think he's banking on it, but I think he's hedging on it. That's for sure. I think he's sitting there and going,
well, they don't have anyone else internally who's more qualified than him if they want to go that route. That's true.
And he's proven success. So,
yeah, I mean, there was a couple good jobs available this summer. He didn't get either of them. I don't really fault him for not like jumping another Charlotte type gig. Like, I think he still ultimately probably feels really happy he didn't take that one. Yes, he didn't get the money, but that was just a job that's aligning you to get fired in 2 years and then make it so you cannot get hired again.
By the way, that's exactly. And I look, I'm not Kenny Atkinson. He's made a lot more money than me, a lot more successful. But sometimes you got to just keep the job. Maybe you get paid a little bit less, but you're just way happier. And I think that's where he's at. And I know you're talking about Jacob Rubin, but I feel a little. Steve Kerr hasn't gotten his extension yet, and I don't know if he will before the season starts.
It would be really
little weird.
It would be very strange if Steve Kerr coaches a lame duck year. He's very odd. Head coaches don't do lame duck years, particularly coaches with that level of acumen and just success. Like he's not Will Hardy in Utah, where you're just like, this is a fine young coach, but he ultimately, hasn't accomplished anything. It's like a 4-time championship coach,
He's a great coach.
Yeah. And a high paid one. And like, one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the league, both on reputation and just merit. Right. So I think he's going to get extended. I think he's going to get extended. I think he's getting extended at least as long as Steph is here.
Yeah.
And I think his agent is trying to get him extra years tacked on just because, when Steph retires, they're going to want to be like, Steve, we're going to go young, but he wants that money guaranteed. He's like, yeah, you could fire me and still pay me for a year.
Exactly. So I think you're right. I just think it's curious that it hasn't happened yet. So maybe it's the Mike Dunleavy situation where everyone knows it's going to happen. They just got to hash out the details. But I don't know. But this team is sculpted in the vision of Steve Kerr. I mean, so if you're looking at a telltale sign of how is he going to be here long term and the type of power he has, right? Like
that's the other part. If he would look, we know like the front office has had issues with some of the things Steve has done. And like with all things, I think they're both right and they're both wrong. Like some of the things the front office some of the young players the front office build in, like you can't really blame Steve. But then there's other ones you can look at where you're like, it would it hurt you to be a little more flexible, So, but with all that said, I just refuse to believe they're going to let him. He's on the outs if he has this much input into the roster they're building this year. And this is a lot of input. Like Corey Joseph was his decision. He chose Corey Joseph over some other guard options that they could have potentially had. We know that that's who he wanted. Trading Jordan Poole, that was his idea. He basically said, I can't fix this. It's done. These guys will not be able to come together. So I want Draymond to stay and I want him gone. If they didn't value Steve's opinion, they might have dumped Draymond and just kept Poole, I mean,
if that were the case, then yes, I would tell you that Steve's gone. And if they had picked up other big men, I mean, Christian Wood is on the market. I know you had that name in the rundown there. Like, would they have just picked up different types of guys? Because we know for a fact, I mean, and it goes with Steph as well. Like, do they want to play with someone like Christian Wood? Well, it's a talented player, but definitely not someone that plays the Warrior style.
They want bigs who can pass. They want bigs who can play with Steph Curry. They're not doing all that if they're planning to break up the entire thing, That's the way I'm looking at it. So yeah, if they did sign Christian Wood, who's talented, but objectively would make you play a different way because he can't play Warriors basketball. He can't do what Looney and Draymond does. That's not his game. You're not signing him to try to be that player either. The fact that they're passing on trying to get those guys or Oubre or just kind of those type of players lets me know that they're committed to the brand of basketball that has worked under Steve Kerr and Steph. And if you're going to be that committed and let Steve have that much input, you're going to keep him, maybe negotiating.
All right. Maybe Jacob Rubin gets in there. Maybe he's like the new Will Hardy or Nick Nurse, right? Who was a G League guy too. So we'll see. Sure. But you're right. You're probably right.
Sure.
4 more years. 4 more years.
I don't know about 4, but all right.